Okay, welcome everyone. I think we have most of you who have joined us and few of you yet to join us. I am expecting, I think, about 100 plus. I will get into the introduction for the topic that we have in mind today in just a minute, but I was hoping if we could have our participants' cameras on. I don't see a lot of you on your cameras. Don't feel obligated if there is less bandwidth issues. If you're not in a viable condition, I do understand. The reason I'm asking is because I think the recent past has made virtual worlds so evident that sometimes it's a pleasant change to be able to see faces in place of thumbnails. So it would be really nice if you could turn your cameras on. Thank you, Vinay and Rajesh, for setting the stage for that. Hoping to see more faces. So the session I have today is going to try and make it interactive for you with the sole understanding that the more I'm going to try and engage you, the more you're likely to actually understand and internalize the teachings, right? So it may be a little difficult for the 100 odd people to probably unmute, but I will request if you could still share your thoughts, on the chat box, if you will. We have a few poll questions that Noah Benefits team would be helping with that I would again encourage you to answer as frequently as possible. And at any point during the session, if there are queries, please do raise your hand. I would want to make this as relevant as possible for each of you. And we do have a dedicated Q&A towards the end in case during the session we are unable to do that. Just so I know that all of you are still awake, could I get a quick thumbs up? Okay, I see a few of you with thumbs up. Most of you a little lost. Here's hoping that, okay, I see a few thumbs up. Those who aren't raising your thumbs, I have my eye on you. Just kidding. Okay, so what we have today is actually very beautifully named by Noah team. It's called Taking Charge of Your Wellbeing, right? Because let's face it, and I'm going to reiterate this towards the end of the session as well, but no one's going to take as good care of you than you will. Number one. Why? Because no one knows you as well as you know yourself. So the first intention I'd like to set for today is the step of taking care of ourselves, the step of understanding just how important we are is very important, not only for what we call self-care strategies, but also for you to be able to function in a way that you're able to support others. Taking care of yourself becomes important. And I'm going to get to the presentation 1 minute. All right, could one of you confirm to me whether you're able to see the presentation?
Yes, Neha.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks, Ria and other audience members. Okay, so self-care strategies is what we're going to be talking about. But before I get to the what, the why, the how of self-care strategies, I would want you to answer a few questions, poll questions. I just have to select the options that you get. So please do answer and let's try and make it as relevant for you as possible. Aisha, you can support me here, right?
Yeah, sure.
Perfect. So the first poll question is, when did you do something you truly enjoyed? And I think most of us are in that zone of, doing things which adds to our career aspirations or stuff like that. Here, I'm simply talking about even just looking out the window, but you enjoy it, right? So when was the last time you truly did it? Okay, I see the results going up, and most of you are in the last option, which is a while ago, which makes it important that we had this session today, right? Okay, so we have 40 people who responded and counting. About a quarter of you apparently have done it as recently as last week. So kudos to all of you for taking care of your own well-being. I'd love to hear from you people, how is it that you make your practices a regular habit? Okay, so majority of you fall in the last category of a while ago. We'll understand why in some time, and each of our reasons could be different, but this is just sort of a sneak peek into just how much we lack when it comes to taking care of ourselves. even as simple as doing some activity that gives us pleasure, right? Okay, I'm ending this poll. We'll move on to the second poll question. How often have you done this for yourself? So this particular activity that gives you pleasure, which is not necessarily productive, how often do you do it? Do you do it once a week? Aisha, could we have the second poll question? Thank you. So do you do it once a week? Do you do it every month? The very first answer was, I don't remember the last time I did it. And let me tell you that until I think a year or two ago, it was actually the first lockdown that reminded me just how important this is. So don't feel out of line if you fall in the category that hasn't been aware of themselves. We've all been there. We're all probably still there. And that is why we're having this session. But I'm glad that you're being as honest as possible with your responses here. So we still have the results counting. People are still answering, but majority of you again fall in the last category of, I don't remember the last time I did it. We are so lost in the day-to-day demands and commitments that we have that it's actually so difficult for us to imagine. I remember I'm now a practitioner of self-care, right? So now it doesn't seem very natural to me to not think of myself. But initially when people would ask me, when did you have a cup of coffee looking out the window? In my mind, I'm like, who has the time to do that? But we'll see why just it's important to make the time to do that. All right, I'm going to end the quiz now. Again, I think majority of you have not remembered the last time that you were able to do something for yourself. And we have about less than a quarter who are able to do it regularly. Again, those who are regular practitioners, I would love to hear your thoughts as we progress with the presentation here. Okay, the last poll question, Aisha, if you could. Do you have an established self-care practice? So now we're moving a step beyond. Over and above just doing something for yourself, do you have a routine where you consciously take time out to do something that pleases you, to do something that feeds your soul and not necessarily your career? All right, we still have answers coming in. And again, I'd like to remind you people here that this is a safe space and transparency is something that would be adding value to you. So do not worry about being judged. Be as transparent as you can. We all have loopholes. Okay, so it is still counting, but again, we have the majority of you who fall in the category of not having an established self-care practice. Well, worry not. We still have a plan for that as well, where we have come up with certain steps that will allow you to make it a practice, allow you to be more consistent for your self-care routine. All right, I'm ending the poll here. Thank you so much, Aisha, for helping out with that. So we all do things to take care of ourselves, right? Most of you did fall in the latter categories of not having regular practices, but most of us have still done something to take care of ourselves. The concern or the lack is with the fact that we don't do it consciously. We don't do it by taking the time out every day or once every few days or once a week that, hey, now's the time to just rejuvenate and this is all for myself and I'm going to do it in a way that would allow me to operate better, feel refreshed, and then do better at my job and other aspects of my life. We don't really do that, which is where it becomes a bit of a concern. Because we're not really aware of taking care of ourselves consciously, we tend not to be consistent with it. Now, what happens? How can we make it consistent and how can we do it in a more regular fashion as a habit rather than an irregular occurrence? The points that you see in front of you would be a good way to begin it, especially if you're new to the journey of self-care. So the few things that you can do, first of all, is become self-aware, right? Understand what your current wellness situation is. Try and understand how often it is that you see yourself losing your cool. Or let me not even make it in an aggressive way. How often do you see yourself not be at peace? And there is no seemingly external factor that would explain why you are feeling so unsettled with it, right? Try to understand where you lie when it comes to your well-being. And that will be the first step to help you understand what your body requires, what your mind, what your soul requires in order to take those necessary steps. Identify the people who drain your energy. This is not to say that the people are good, people are bad. No, it's simply that we have different personalities. Each of us has different personalities. Each of us has different energies. And some we vibe well with, some we do not. Understand who are those people, what are those situations that drains the energy out of you, draining in a way that doesn't serve your purpose, right? Serve your purpose either when it comes to your professional life, serve your purpose when it comes to your personal life, social life. If it is not serving your purpose, draining your energy is to no end. It doesn't really match in that case. So identify those people and situations that drain your energy, where you are struggling to thrive, and understand that that's where you need to create boundaries. Which brings me to my third point: build boundaries wherever necessary. It is very important to say no. And as I say this out loud, I know how difficult it is to say no. I'm still in those situations where saying no to someone who requests me, especially if it is a loved one, is very difficult. But there are instances where we need to understand that putting our foot down right now will do more benefit to us in the long run. Because if we pull ourselves thin right now, we may not have much left to offer to others. So building those boundaries and learning to say no becomes important. Next, recognize the people that you feel happy around. I apologize. Give me just 1 second. I'm going to plug in my charger. Thank you for being patient. So as I was saying, once we've built boundaries, it's also important to understand what is it that brings us happiness. So now you understood what your body needs, you understood what drains your body and your soul, you understood how to create boundaries. The next step is to really understand how do you then transition, shift your focus to something that makes you happy, something that, again, I'll repeat it, feeds your soul. I genuinely believe that feeding your soul is the best way to keep yourself healthy, mind, body, and overall. So find those things, find those activities, find those people that help you reduce your stress levels, make difficult days a lot easier. And then comes the step of implementation, right? A plan means nothing, a routine means nothing if you're unable to act on it, if you're unable to implement it in your life. So consciously schedule these activities that you have identified, which bring you happiness, people that bring you happiness. Consciously make the time regularly to integrate that into your day-to-day routine. And trust me, that you will probably become a lot more productive at work. I'm talking in professional terms now because all of you are in a professional setting. But again, they're all interdependent. It's like a domino effect. You do well in one aspect of life, likely that you will also do well in other aspects of life. So similarly, after coming up with your plan, after identifying those sources that feed your soul, that make you happy, come up with a plan on how you can implement it and how you can make it a habit. Again, these are just a few steps to help you. As we progress with the session right now, I'll give you some principles, some thumb rules that you can probably utilize to be able to implement and make it a habit. Okay, so let's get started. What is self-care? I think by now we have a decent understanding of what self-care is. One thing I do want to convey over here is that it is subjective from person to person. It means different. For me, sometimes self-care is literally watching out my window, these beautiful large farmlands that we have. I live in a semi-urban area. That's something for me. For you, it could be reading a book. For you, it could be taking a walk, right? Self-care is a set of actions that you take to look after your health and your well-being. And those set of actions could be anything. It's mostly about nourishing yourself with these activities, with the people, or with the hobbies that help you manage your energy levels. And like I said, it could even be as simple as keeping yourself hydrated. And I want to mention this because in one of our internal team meetings, we regularly weekly discuss what are the challenges we faced, et cetera, et cetera. This happened a while ago when one of our colleagues mentioned that I didn't remember that I was to drink water today because there were just so many back-to-back tasks to complete. And our organization did a really sweet thing of like sending us all hampers because there was a festival around the corner. There was a bottle that came around with that, which said hydrate on it, which is literally a reminder that, hey, keep yourself hydrated. And it could be as simple as that, but, refilling your empty metaphorical vessel with water, which is probably the most simplest yet nutritious fluids you can have, is a way to take care of yourself. So it could be as simple as that. It could be as extravagant as going on a vacation. But it is something that is bringing you that happiness. It is something that's giving you that refresher period in order to go and operate better in every aspect of your life. So these are some domains of self-care. The idea is that overall, taking care of yourself holistically is more likely to bring you that calm and composure within to reduce your stress levels, right? So it would help if you're able to approach your self-care through each of these domains. So for example, when it comes to your emotional health, what are some things that worry you? Are you able to cater to it? Is there something negative in your life that's going on that you can cut from your life, perhaps? These are some things, some questions you can answer for yourself to understand what your emotional health is and how you can really take the steps to be able to better take care of your emotional health. And similarly for social health, it could be, what kind of people do I interact with? What kind of mentors am I interacting with on a regular basis? How far do they drain my energy? How far do they add value to me and my aspirations? These are some things that will help you understand how your social health is and how you would like to modify it. Financial health, or I'd like to call it professional health. Financial tends to limit it, but professional health could probably look at, what are the kind of skills you would want to equip yourself with in order to do better in life. Physical health, what kind of fitness regime do you follow? What kind of fitness regime would you like to follow? It could be as simple as going on an early morning walk for a half an hour or 40 minutes, or it could be doing circuit training like 3 to 4 times in a week. But that will essentially, it may be a small step, but it is a step towards your physical health, which will add on to your overall well-being when it comes to your holistic well-being. And last and certainly not the least, something that resonates with me personally is your spiritual health. And I don't want to go into religion. Religion and spirituality are quite different. Spiritual health in this context simply means, what is it that inspires you? Beyond your work, beyond your family, beyond your immediate commitments, which become those visions of your commitments become tough when your days are challenging. So when the days are challenging, what is it that still wakes you up in the morning? What is it that still inspires you to move forward, to go through the day for the commitments that you have made for yourself? That is what I mean when I say spiritual health in this context. And having an understanding in each of these domains, what resonates with you is essentially the way that you can understand what your own self-care mantra could be, what your own routine could be. Want to take a quick breather to ensure that my audience here hasn't slept. Could I get a quick thumbs up or something to know that you people are still here? Anyone who's not from the NOAA team, because they're very kind and helpful. Okay. I see a couple of thumbs ups. Thank you. Please do feel free to raise your hands and intervene if you have any queries. Okay. Lot less thumbs up than I'm hoping to see. But let's hope the activities that are coming up will rejuvenate you. What are some barriers to putting yourself first? So we did a survey when we started, right? We asked ourselves, what are some things we do just to enjoy? How often do we do it? Do we have a regular established practice for self-care? And again, most of us felt in the latter category of not having any of those established or regularized in our routines, right? So clearly we have some barriers that are stopping us from taking care of ourselves, which we'll take a quick glance at. Something that will allow us to understand why we're not in the other category of the poll answers. And hopefully towards the end of the session, we'll transition there. So to put it briefly, guilt, I think, plays a very huge role. It has a little bit to do with the cultural context as well. We are a culture that puts others in front of us. And in general, I think human civilization and species is such that we want to offer ourselves, offer our support to others. I won't go down into the nitty-gritties of it, but guilt plays a huge role when it comes to how can I, take a day off and have a babysitter look after my baby when I could be the one to take care of the baby, right? It could be as simple as that. I mean, maybe not all of you can relate to it, but it gives you a general idea. When it comes to putting yourself in front of others, there's a huge guilt that plays on us, which is a very important barrier to acknowledge over here, because let's face it, there is a reason why we get the instructions, when we fly locally or internationally, we get this instructions of using the oxygen mask by the air hostess, right? And they always say that you need to wear your own mask first, even if it comes to helping out your baby. In comparison, you need to first wear your mask, because the understanding here is that you are not going to be able to help others unless you help yourself first. That's a very simple but often lost in thought logic. The fact that we are rendered incapable if we don't take those conscious steps, and identifying this guilt is the first step to sort of negate that, and then consciously be able to take care of ourselves, right? So try and answer these questions. Who or what drains your energy? I'm asking you this again, reiterating on the fact that we need to be able to be consciously aware of these aspects so that we can respond to what our body needs and not just superficially operate and function in a way that's definitely going to tire us. So ask yourselves, who or what drains your energy? And challenge those guilt statements that come up with your own mantras. For example, I have to be able to take a day off for myself and have the babysitter look after my baby so that I'm able to better tend to her needs tomorrow. Because if I can't take care of myself right now, I'm just going to be 48 hours of uncombed, unbathed, uh, not having eaten for a while, probably person who is not going to be able to support the baby in the long term. Again, use this example in your own context. This is just something that I read a while ago and which popped up in my mind. Understand who or what drains your energy. And the next step, very important step, challenge this guilt with statements and mantras that will help you justify why putting yourself first once in a while is completely okay. Then there's dialectical thinking. I won't go into the technical jargon. It simply means that oftentimes our mind comes up with two contradictory statements that leave us confused ki ye kare ki wo kare. For example, do I take the day off or do I take care of my baby, right? These are seemingly clashing thoughts. Rather than getting lost in the confusion of it, what we could try and do is to challenge the thought process. Ask ourselves why we're thinking it. Why do we think that we need to take care of ourselves? And importantly, as important as this question would be asking yourself, why is it that I can't have a babysitter take care of my baby, right? What happens then is that you will get some insights and answers. See, these answers may not really justify or give you a clear-cut answer of taking care of yourself. What these questions will do is to help you understand what your reasons are for these thoughts to come to your mind. And having that clarity will help you decide which side you lean towards better. Is it the fact that you need to take care of yourself? Or is it the fact that, hey, I don't really trust this babysitter. Maybe I'm going to find someone a little more credible and then take that time off for myself, right? But you can come to this understanding once you've asked yourself the questions and challenge those questions. And saying it out loud always helps make it more real. So try and understand this seemingly contrasting thought processes and question why that is the case. And the biggest is lack of time. This is something I said in the start of our session as well. We do not find time for ourselves because we're so lost in the commitments that we've made. There's the regular job that we do, there's caring for our family. Some of us are involved in volunteering activities. Some of us have probably taken up courses on the side along with our career. There's no time left for ourselves. But here's the thing, if you don't find that time for yourself, it's going to happen again, what I've been saying all this while. So every once in a while, And this is something that I think it's called the Pomodoro technique. It's quite, I'm pretty sure most of you must have heard of it as well. It's the idea that in a 24 hours day, let's minus off 6 to 8 hours for sleep. Let's look at maybe an 8 hours working day. Rather than sitting and working for a stretch of 8 hours, you may actually be more productive if you work for a couple of hours and take a breather for 15 to 20 minutes, right? Tell yourself to halt every while, every now and then, to see how you are doing on three levels. On your physical level, your physical body, how's it feeling? Do you feel any tension? Do you feel any rigidity in your body parts? How are you feeling mentally? Do you feel like clouded thoughts? Are you anticipating something in a fearful way? Are you chilled? That could be the case as well. So do a physical body check, do an emotional body check, do a check of your surroundings as well. Are you comfortable where you are seated? And when you ask yourself these questions, oftentimes you'll get responses that will help you become better, right? You understand that your body is probably rigid because you've been sitting for a couple of hours. So you will know that just simply stretching your neck will make you feel a tad bit better. Maybe your legs are quite rigid. Going for a quick walk out into the corridor of your house perhaps might give you what you need. So every couple of hours, ask yourselves, how is your body feeling? How's your mind feeling? How are you feeling about your surroundings as well? And that will help you. That is essentially you taking that time, even if it is as small as 5 minutes, taking that time to take care of yourself. And lastly, change is very hard. I'll go more into detail with this particular step in a few slides. But essentially, what happens is that when we make something a habit, even something, say, having back-to-back commitments and meetings, when it becomes a habit, it is literally wired into your brain. Your brain functions in that manner for a long time. And changing that pattern, rewiring that brain is obviously going to be hard. So that's the reason I was asking you people to not be too worried, because we're all guilty of this. We are all in the trap of falling into habits that are not always serving our purpose. But I'm hoping that what we'll be covering in the upcoming slides will help you change that pattern with as much ease as possible. I'm going to take a bit of a breather now, and we will be doing some introspection practice. So I would request you all to just get some writing tools, get a paper or a pen. If you're comfortable using your digital devices to respond to the prompts, that's okay too. What I would say is that mainly these responses are for your own insight, for you to be aware of what the answers are. You don't need to share it, but if you feel like sharing it, if you want to share with the rest of us any insights you have, definitely use the chat box. Okay. I would request, because not all of you have your cameras on, I would request like a thumbs up once you're all ready. Okay. Thank you. All right. I see a few of you with your thumbs up, so I'm going to commence. Again, just a reminder, there are no right or wrong answers. Just be transparent. This is for your own insight and your own understanding. What I want you to do is, with a bit of a visualization, imagine yourself as someone without fears or any work or any life restrictions. You have complete freedom. What does this ideal day look like for you? You know, someone who's not having to do things out of obligation, but out of choice. So what are those activities you would do? Who are those people you would meet? What are some of those things that you would like to explore, perhaps that you haven't done before on that ideal day? Okay. I'm going to give about a minute or two to each of you. But again, if you need me to stay on a prompt for longer, just unmute yourself and let me know or raise your hand. Okay, so now that you have imagined this ideal day, what currently comes in the way of making that day a reality? Again, be as transparent. There are no right or wrong answers. Each of us would have subjective responses to these. In your ideal day, in all of those activities you'd be doing, with all of those people you would want to meet, what is stopping you from currently making that day a reality? And it could be more than one thing, of course. Okay, so the few of you who do have your cameras on, I think are done writing. So I'm going to move on to the next prompt. How can you say no to that barrier? What is it that needs to change for you to make that ideal day a real day? Are there any people that are stopping you from doing it? Are there any commitments you have taken up that stops or that becomes a barrier in the process? Think about the change that you would have to make in order to make the ideal day a real day. And also keep in mind that as you are thinking of a response to this, and if your mind naturally comes up with guilty statements, no place like the present to start. Challenge your statements. Challenge the validity and challenge the practicality of those statements if you feel the guilt creeping in, because saying no to something, saying no to someone does not come easy. All right. I do want to check if there is anyone who would like to share their insights for the prompts that we have just done. Maybe just an overview of it. You're more than welcome to share. Especially from those individuals who answer the poll questions of having a regular self-care practice. I would again love to hear your thoughts on it. Okay, no problem at all. I will move on. I hope though that you were able to answer these queries for yourself regardless. Okay, I think there's something in the more motivation. Manish, could you just shed some light? I think saying, I'm not quite sure which particular prompt you responded this to. Do you mind unmuting and sharing your thoughts?
Mostly since like is work from home environment, and I think sometimes we are very involved in doing our work because of all the constraints, and there come chances like when we like I particularly want myself to get physically fit, because I was like fit 2 years ago. I was very fit, and now I'm not that fit, and I know that. But somehow like earlier what I used to do was like while coming from office or while going to office, I used to maybe go to gym or have a walk and that. But I'm not sure like I think that was because of the motivation that I was getting from my peers, that I was meeting in like office regularly. I think that was one thing, because I used to know like they all are going to gym and they are all like what they are doing in their lives. I think that part of life is not that functional now. So this is one thing I feel ki, more motivation or more connect to people if there was, then I think I might have might have been doing the same thing.
Thank you so much for sharing that quite openly, actually. I think Like you mentioned, Manish, more than the motivation, yes, I think there's a bit of motivation, but like you rightly mentioned, remote work scenario is such that that community support that you get, even if it is just from your professional circle, right, matters a lot. But there's your answer. There's your answer to what you need to change. Perhaps it's not as clearly as to say no, but the change that is required to make your ideal day a real day is to look at ways in which you can find that community support. If not with your work peers, what are some social groups you can join where physical activities are a regular thing. But I'm really happy that you got that insight, and thank you for sharing. I think we have Chintan also, who shared, Fursat seems a simple term, but needs mountains of barriers to move before reaching that state, right? Um, I I'm glad to say that I can only partly resonate with you now, Chintan, but I do understand where you're coming from, or I can imagine. I can imagine where you're coming from, because a while ago, as brief as maybe 6 or 7 months ago, um, it was the norm for me to be, in back-to-back commitments, to an extent where it spiraled down in a negative way, right? And that's essentially what we're trying to avoid here. वो फुर्सत अगर नहीं मिलेगी, and I'm going to repeat my statement in English just in case we have people who don't understand Hindi, but फुर्सत जब नहीं मिलेगी, when you don't find the time, it's not so much about getting the time, it's about finding it. You need to go looking for it. And if you don't find it, you are bound to go down a spiral that may be a little difficult to come out of. It won't be impossible. I don't think anything is impossible for human beings. It would be difficult, and there is no reason why we need to make things difficult for ourselves. So hopefully, I'm sorry, did someone unmute?
Yeah, that was me. I mean, Fursat is not that. I mean, it's not finding time. Finding time is still a task. Scheduling. Fursat is having time, which is different.
Having time. How would you, thank you for bringing that change. So here, I think what you're trying to say is the time is being dictated by external factors and is not so much in your control. That's the sense I'm getting. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. So when you asked me to imagine that ideal day, the first thing that struck was Fursat, which is not having to attend to, not having to even define what is it that will pull me next. And that as a concept, this is having a day of Fursat.
That is your ideal day.
Yeah.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you for correcting me there. But were you able to come to the understanding of how you can transition to that particular visualization?
And that also is mentioned there, which is like, it's not a single thing. It also is a state of mind, isn't it? Which is
true. Absolutely.
You've got work, you've got family, you've got this, you've got that. It's all of the dunyadari to take care of. And even if you're just mentally processing all of it while physically not moving an inch, you're not free.
Interesting. Hi, sorry, was someone saying something?
Yeah, I can go ahead.
Okay. I would just, I have a prompt for you, Chintan. I mean, nothing that you need to answer to me at all, really, and not an insight I expect you to have immediately. But maybe it would be worth pondering on. If I'm unable to get that entire day for myself, is there something that can be done where I can get bits and pieces of that throughout a day or throughout a few days? Because the understanding has been established that it is important for us to take care of ourselves. The how of it has to be figured out is also an understanding which has been established, right? So if we are unable to do it at a long stretch, can we try it through the Pomodoro technique, where we have it in breathers, where we are able to refill our empty cups with whatever beverage, hopefully nutritious and non-alcoholic beverage that we'd like. Again, this is just a prompt, a thought for you to introspect on. And I hope that helps you a tad bit.
Yeah, thanks.
I think Sejal said something really like spiritual here. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. I resonate with you. It's actually a process which gets us where we want. Yes, I'm glad to hear your responses. First of all, thank you for telling me that you're not asleep, and keep them coming. Keep these responses coming. Thank you for sharing to those of you who did. What we'll now do is we have a brief understanding of, what kind of self-care activities we'd like. We also have an understanding of what are the things that are stopping us from doing that right now, and how can we modify it. So let's try and make an affirmation of it. Let's try and make it, strengthen it a little more. And I'll guide you through it, of course. All right, I'm going to quickly skim through the visualization practice I have, and we'll get to the end poll. So let's start with this. We will now make an affirmation for ourselves, and here's how we'll do it. The first thing we'll do is say what you want to do in positive words. Here's why, okay? Go back to that ideal day and those activities that you lined up for yourself and try to put them in positive words. What I mean by that is, in the English vocabulary, words like no, not are considered doesn't, cannot are negative. So rather than saying, I cannot spend one more day without a babysitter, maybe the positive way to put it is, I would like to spend one day just by myself, right? Find that activity, find that routine that you like for yourself, put it in positive words. The next step would be to visualize doing it. So if my activity is for me to take a day off for myself, my visualization would be all of the places I'd go to, the outfit I would wear, the kind of spa treatment I'd like to get, maybe go to a yoga class in between that will help me really release that stress, right? Visualize those things that you would do in that activity. And the third step may seem the simplest, but is the most impactful of all. Focus on the feeling that you'll be getting. How do you feel when you visualize yourself in that ideal reality? How do you feel wearing those clothes? How do you feel meeting with those people? How do you feel doing those activities? Remember that feeling. Remember that feeling of rejuvenation. Remember that feeling of your soul feeling refreshed. And that hopefully will motivate you. All right, I will take a pause here now. I believe the team at Nova needs to do a few polls. Okay, Aisha, Devansh, I'll let you take over.
We do have a few questions, like what type of sessions would you like to join in the coming sessions? So we have conducted a few events before as well in the part of Nova and connecting with your company as well. So we'd like to know what is the area of interest. So maybe mental wellness, physical fitness, financial wellness, or like just a chill session, or you need all of the above. So do drop your inputs. We'll just quickly stop this poll and we'll let Neha to continue.
Thank you so much, Aisha. Okay, I'm going to go back to, is it okay if I think there are two more, but I'm going to leave my screen sharing on because
yeah, that's totally okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure, Chintan, we'll do the next.
Okay, so what I'm hoping is by now you have been able to put your activity in positive vocabulary, positive English, words in the English vocabulary, visualize what you have been doing and really experience those feelings as your imagination takes you to that ideal, beautiful set of activities for yourself. Again, a quick thumbs up if you were able to do this well. And I'll move to the conclusion of the presentation. Okay, couple of you that I see. All right. Again, if you haven't, feel free to raise your hand and intervene. So change is hard, right? This is one of the barriers that we spoke of in the beginning. What I'd like to bring attention to over here is a few steps that will help you make that change a tad bit easier, perhaps. Aisha, I think there's just thumbs up in the chat box. In case there are any queries, could you please bring my attention to it?
Sure.
Perfect. Thank you. Right. So the bottom left corner of the slide is what I'd like you to focus on. The tiny habits method, right? It's a 3-step process, very easy. First, what you do is you make yourself, you sort of pick a routine that is already part of your day-to-day actions. For example, what is your anchoring moment, right? What are some things that you do on a regular basis? Waking up, as you can see in the slide, is something you do on a regular basis. So pick that anchoring moment, which you know you will be conscious of, which you do on a regular basis. Follow up that anchoring moment with a tiny behavior. This behavior is essentially that change, that transition that is moving towards taking care of yourself, right? And let it be tiny. Take tiny steps, because again, changing is like breaking mountains. What you need to do is make them molehills. Molehills are a lot easier to cross than mountains are. So pick a tiny behavior that will follow with your anchoring moment. And this tiny behavior in this example could be as simple as looking out the window. It could be as simple as, so for me personally, I've recently gone back into religion. So my personal step is not to look at my phone as soon as I get up, but I get up and I look at the photo of the spiritual leader that we follow. It personally brings me some sense of courage, right? So that is my tiny behavior. Yours could be something very different. Yours could probably be going and smelling the plants in your garden. But pick that tiny behavior for yourself, followed by the anchoring moment. And thirdly, celebrate. Because why not? You're making that change, which has been wired in your mind for God knows how many years, and you're trying to rewire it, right? Maybe have a small dance for yourself, jump in ecstasy, if you will. But celebrate the fact that you have taken that step towards integrating self-care in a tiny but impactful manner. This will make change a lot easier. In tiny steps, but steps that are still impactful. And on the right side of the screen, feel free to take a screenshot if you want to, are few things that can be considered as tiny behaviors. And here's where I would want you to ask yourself, what would your tiny behavior be? Need not be what's given on the screen. Those are just ideas, but essentially because you want to make it more relevant for yourself, what would your tiny behavior be? And I'd like to end it now with a pledge. I would like each of us to take this pledge. Now, even those who haven't been responding, it's a sincere request that you take this pledge and express your pledge through the chat box as well. In 3 simple ways. We're going to try and come up, each of us is going to try and come up with our self-care mantra over here, okay? One thing that you need to do and can do daily. So what are some things that you just have to do? Again, do not limit yourself to professional and personal and social realms. This is solely about your individual self and to feed your soul. So what is that one thing that you need to and can do on a daily basis? Similarly, on a weekly basis and on a monthly basis. So let's try and understand, pick those activities for ourselves realistically that are possible to implement. I'm going to give myself and each of you a few minutes. I think it would be only fair for me also to participate. But let's understand what the self-care pledge looks like for each of us. Wake up early and go for a walk. Thank you, Devansh. Okay, so daily, weekly, and monthly. Okay, remember to, so you have like a bunch of activities you can tossle around with and not just one. Try to explore, be adventurous. Stretch every morning. I like that. Spend more time with loved ones. Absolutely. Meditate, reflect, travel monthly. Can so resonate. Meet a friend once in a week. I love that, Ankita. I love how specific you have been with your activity. All the best, Pragati. I hope you're able to implement that. Not look up. Yes. Yes. For me personally, Aisha, that has been a challenge. But yeah, the anchor moment and tiny behavior process helped. Chat casually with peers. And that becomes so much important in the remote world, especially. You feel like you're all in a meeting, but trust me, working with your work peers and like remotely working is so different. So I think it's important to take that extra step to connect with your social circle as well. All the best on that, Ankita. Okay, keep the responses coming. I like that each of us are taking the pledge. But while you are making your pledge, I would just like to leave you with this reminder that there is only one person you spend your whole life with, and that is yourself. Hence, I would like to justify the entire last hour of reiterating the fact that taking care of yourself is important and is something that's needed. That's it from mine. We're now open to Q&A. I think there are still responses.
Yes, we do have a poll. If you could kindly fill the poll. And we'll take up the questions. I do have got a few questions in my private chat. So if you have any more, you can send it out either in the open or you can send it to me in private so I can ask Neha. So before that, if anybody have any questions, do unmute your mic and ask or just drop it in the chat.
Let's try and unmute. I'm open to both, Aisha. Thanks for pointing that out. If we can unmute, I think it would be more lively, but again, no pressure.
Okay, I will ask a question if there is any. So how do you decide between career growth and self-care? That was one question.
Very interesting question. Here's my, I would answer it with a counter question. How important is yourself, right? How important is the self to your career growth? And I'll give a bit of a context. I will not leave you in conundrums over there. Here's the thing, right? You are able to function in any aspect of your life if you are in a good position yourself. So I'm not saying that you quit your job and you just go on this maybe self-realization journey like Julia Roberts did in Eat, Pray and Love. Maybe we can't really afford that. But what is it that we can do from time to time? Because self-care is not a one-time thing. It's a journey. It's a journey that you need to be on constantly. What is it that you can do regularly so that your career aspirations can also be fulfilled? Because let's face it, and I'll give you my personal example. I am doing a course along with the job that I'm doing. And just recently, start of March, I decided to go part-time because I understood that for 6 months, I was unable to do justice to my course assignments, neither was I able to do justice to my work, right? Now to the outside world, it may seem like, how did you move from full-time to part-time? That's counterproductive. But here's the thing. I knew that I wasn't doing well in either of my commitments, but more importantly, it was draining me. It was draining me constantly where I was doubting myself. So I had to take the step where I chose one over the other in understanding how it fits with my whole career aspirations, with the understanding that I'm still able to contribute to my workplace and not compromise on my efficiency over there. Look at that big picture that you have when it comes to your own career. Look at how well you need to operate in order to make that a reality, and you will get your answer. You will take care of yourself, but not at the cost of your career aspirations. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I guess most of the people have the career related questions. So how do you prioritize work and how do you prioritize yourself? Like on the same lines of the last question. So we will have to see like this one.
If anyone has anything specific, of course, I do encourage that you, share that question on chat or by unmuting. But what I generally, here's the thing, every aspect of our life is interdependent on one another. You know very well that when you go through a romantic breakup, you are going to go through a phase of unsettled, uncomfortable, irrational behavior and thought process. You know that it's not logical to do that, but it has an effect. Similarly, if you're personally not doing well, it will affect your social life. It will, if you're not doing professionally well, it will affect. So it's like a domino thing. The idea here is to create a balance. How do you strike a balance within amongst your commitments as well as yourself? Because you are on the center. Do not ever forget that. For you to be able to balance everything else, the center, I think it's almost as if you are the sun and the commitments are the planets orbiting around it. The sun needs to stand its ground. And for you to be able to stand your ground, you need to understand what feeds your soul. How can you continue feeding your soul on a regular basis rather than like when you hit the saturation point? And how can you do that in a balanced manner? That is the knack, essentially.
So
Again,
one last question.
Yes.
Yeah, please, sorry.
No, what I wanted to conclude with is my answer may seem ambiguous, but that's because the questions, are generic to balancing career and personal life. If it doesn't answer your specific question, I just encourage you to ask it regardless. Please go on, Aisha.
Yeah, so one last question. So like ideally, how much time would you suggest to dedicate to self-care?
Again, to each his own, right? But I am still in that journey. But I think I've done it for a couple of years now, so I have a fair idea. For me, what works is I need to have 15 minutes every day. And just pushing myself 5 days a week and then taking 2 days breather does not work for me. I need that time to time breather space for myself. But if you're the kind of person who is able to push through an entire week, right? I would say take a freaking entire day for yourself. 1 hour will not suffice. If you have slogged yourself, met your commitments, been your best potential self through the 5 days, or let's not even go as far as to say best potential self. If you did your bit, if you put your efforts on that day as best as you could, then you deserve to take that 6th day off for yourself. And the 7th day could just be like, a chill bridging space between the chill time you had and the work commitments that are coming in the next week.
Great. So I hope we don't have any more questions, but this was a great session. I am sure many have got some insight, and right now I'm going to do my self-care personally. So yeah, thank you for joining, and thank you everyone for joining. I would like to give a round of applause to Neha for pulling out this great session and a very insightful session actually. So I have dropped a form survey link. If everyone would like to fill that form, that would be great. And I hope it's a great weekend to everybody. And we do have a repetitive session on Monday. So that's happening from 7 to 8. So if you have your colleagues coming in who have not joined in this session, or if you want to rejoin again, please do feel free to join on Monday. So happy weekend, everyone. And I hope you have a great, amazing self-care related weekend as well.
You literally spoke what I was thinking. Thank you so much for reiterating that. Here's the weekend, all of you. So I would genuinely encourage you all to try the steps that we've offered. Try to create your own self-care routine, and trust me, it will be amazing experience. I hope this was helpful. Thanks again for listening to me for the past hour. Thank you, Aisha, and no benefits.
Thank you, everyone. Bye, guys.